Hello everyone and welcome back to the Barclay Super Granary layout. This is a video that I know I said I was going to make a long time ago and just haven't got around to it until today. This is the Barclay Super Granary, and this is an advanced ATLS intersection. So I've taken the liberty of creating some of the stuff at this intersection already, but you can see the challenge that it presents. We've got an intersection inside of a downtown district. I'll just pan around here so you can see. And we've got a train crossing right in the middle of it. So that's going to present some logistical issues, and your role as the world, as your own little world, you're creating it. You've got to solve these sorts of issues. So this video is going to go through a very advanced intersection making. And I'm going to quantify that with, we're going to make this intersection function. We're not going to make it look very pretty or function in every single possible way that creators like to do it, but we're just going to make it work. But I call this advanced because we are not only operating rail crossings, we're also operating traffic lights. So that adds to the difficulty of this sort of setup. So this will kind of give you an intro into how to set up ATLS traffic lights and how to set up ATLS crossings and how to make them work together. So this is probably going to be a bit of a long video, but I just want to take you through this process because I know a lot of people want to create their own custom road interchanges and just don't know how to do that. So without further ado, let's begin. I've already taken the liberty of creating the traffic poles and things like that because that took about 15-20 minutes just to plan out and create, so I didn't want to waste your time. But I will tell you that the traffic lights are ATLS lights. Just search ATLS on the download station, you'll find a whole bunch of these. We are using ATLS US 3 light signals as well as horizontal signals. The traffic poles I think also came off the DLS if I'm not mistaken, and they are traffic gantry L shapes. Now, one thing that's very beneficial to do whenever you're planning something like this is to see how trains actually will pass through the intersection. So that's why we have this Union Pacific train. I'm just going to drag into the middle of the intersection here. And so when you do that, it shows you the height of things. I don't think we're going to have too many other locomotives that are much larger than this. And there's no need for any intermodal or superliner traffic. Those are really high stacked cars, and you'd have to worry about a height issue with those. But there's no reason for any of those to come through this part of the rail, so we're not going to have that. So I think the tallest thing most likely will be a train engine like this. And the reason I set this here so I can see the clearances. So we'll just zoom in here really close, and you can see that I pretty much had to lay the signal gantries as they are so that they clear the train. You can see where my cursor is. That's the top of the gantry. It's going to go right over the cab of this locomotive, and this one, it actually clears a lot better. You can see that it barely clears this street light, which I've kept on the yarn interchange. These are yarn roads, and this is a yarn intersection because it lights it up. It makes it look pretty, and it clears it. And I double check this one as well. You can drag the train over just to make certain that it's going to clear. And so, we see that, the train's going to clear, so we don't need the train anymore. I'll put that away. And then we can start laying out the lights. I decided to go with the horizontal lights. You can choose whatever lights you want, just as long as they make sense, with the region that you're modeling. This is kind of a rural Iowa sort of thing. And with the height issues with the train, I thought, they probably would put horizontal lights in so that the drivers can see. So that's why I decided to go with, this is a train surveyor. It's your own world. You can create whatever you want. And that's just what I decided this town was going to go with. So I've already hung 3 sets of lights. And in fact, I realized I missed one. So we'll go do that as well. So I've already hung 3 sides just so that we can do one side and I don't take up too much time. So this is the only side we have left. So when you spawn these lights in, they just kind of plop on the ground. Here, I'll select these for you. And, you set it and they plop on the ground and you need to adjust the height. you know, no big deal. You just grab the height tool, hold shift to make it a finer movement, and move them up. In general, there's a consistent height that you find when you do these, and for mine it was right around the 3.6 mark. Just bring them up there, get the height correct with the gantry, which you can zoom out, take a look. Yep, that looks pretty good. And then we come over the top, and this is where we move them horizontally or vertically. And it's really beneficial to get right over the top of the lane. You know, twist it to make sure it's going straight up and down, so that way you can accurately move these along the pole and make them where they make sense. So I would think, you know, you'd have them both pretty much over the lane that they are covering. So that looks pretty good. We'll come down here. Yep, that looks good. So, pardon me. So one thing I missed was I have a vertical light positioned before the interchange, because I wish I had the train back now. When I have the train across the intersection, you really cannot see the other traffic light. So I'm going to put a traffic light on this side. So I decided to go with the vertical for this case, just because that's what I felt like doing. And we'll put that one over here, rotate to see fit, you know, rotate to the correct angle, and then adjust the height. All the other ones I found were right at about a 4.05, and that mounted the light just about perfectly. You always want to do height before moving, because when you're not straight up and down or straight parallel to the ground, you will try to maneuver the position to be where you think is right under the pole, and then when you lift it up, you realize you missed it by like 2 feet. So it's always easiest just to do the height first, then move it. And of course, you know, the first light you hang up is going to take some experimenting with how high it's supposed to be. But, you know, the other ones will follow suit. So I'm just going to put this, let me get right center on the lane, right up above, and I'm just going to mount it right there. There, that looks pretty good. That looks pretty good. You know, it's just a bit strange because of the circumstance with the train line, but that's okay. That is all right. So that looks good. That looks good. So let's actually set up the intersection so that the lights function properly. So what you're going to need is you're going to need to go grab an ATLS controller, which I have saved to my pick list actually, so it's really easy for me to grab, and plop that down. There it is. Okay, so the ATLS controller is what's going to be our magical device that's going to control this intersection for us. Now, as I said in the introduction, this is going to be a fairly basic interchange. At the moment, the game only recognizes cars going across the intersection. They will not turn. They just don't. That's just something with this game. The cars won't turn at a full four-way intersection. They just keep going straight. Now, some people will go and take invisible roads, and they'll make it so that the cars will turn by following invisible roads. I don't particularly care to do that, just because it's too much. It's just more work that I don't need to do. You know, this is a Trainz game, not a Cars game. So we're just going to keep traffic going in 2 directions, which means we have 2 what are called routes. And I'll pull up the ATLS window and explain further. Routes are the number of roads with traffic on them, I guess is the best way to describe it. So if you have a 4-way intersection like we have here, it's 2 routes. You have traffic going north-south, traffic going east-west. And the lights always work in pairs. So we'll just add 2 routes, always set to whatever the next channel is, and remember that that is channel 6. So then we will adjust phase timings. Actually, no, we won't. I got a little ahead of myself. So you can only have a minimum of 2 routes. You can't have any more than that. Route 1 and Route 2. We'll make Route 1 our north-south road and Route 2 our east-west road, just so it's easy to keep track. Then we are going to click on phases. You have to have a minimum of 2 phases, and a phase is just the state of the traffic light. So, you know, north-south is green, east-west is red. West to east is green, north-south is red. Fairly basic. You can add up to as many phases as you want. You can make it as complicated as you want. You could have like the largest intersection in the entire world. It doesn't matter. But keep in mind, you know, these are the different phases. So this is a very basic phase setup. We'll take Route 1, north-south. That's going to be green. And Route 2 will be red on the first phase. On the second phase, Route 1 will be red. Route 2 will be green. So that is as simple as it will get. And we'll be talking about these SPL things here in a moment. Okay, so that's a really, really basic setup. We'll call that good. And then you need to go to each individual traffic light and set it to the appropriate channel. So we'll grab this first light, we'll set it to channel number 6. Now this one does not have a convenient thing where you click on it and just put in the number. That kind of stinks. So we set it to channel 6. This is our north-south route, so we called it route number 1. So we click that to hit 1 on the third line. This middle line here is a customization feature. This first button is, you know, the light sequence, red, amber, and green. Right now it's set to what we would normally see in America. If you want to set it again, this is the light sequence that happens in Europe. So if you're modeling a European route, the light will take care of itself. This second light will determine what the green bulb is. And by that, let me explain. You know, if you have like a left turn arrow, or a right turn arrow, or a forward arrow, or a U-turn, you know, if you have a very special circumstance light. Now, if I click this and click this little checkbox, it will use the little arrow for every single light. So the green, amber, and red will all be the little arrow. If I don't check that, then the lights will just return to normal with the arrow only being the green light. So I just want it to be a main green, you know, just a green bulb. It doesn't have to be anything super fancy. So, and then this will set the amber phase to long or short. I just use long because that's typically what we see in the United States. I'll show a further example of this. Let's go into this light here. Click on that, set it to channel 6. Route is 1, and you'll actually see the arrow change when I click this. If you look right here, and I click it, you'll see that it turns into a different shape. So I think that's really cool. The game right now is auto-saving on me, so this might take a little bit. But yeah, so you can put left turn lanes, right turn lanes. There's another route that I made where when a train comes through an intersection, all the lights turn the right turn arrow on so that people can make right turns because it's safe for them to do so when a train is passing through. They won't run into it. So, you know, it's you can do pretty much whatever you want. And we'll set that to 1 and call that good. And so you can see the lights actually changing right now, and we want to do the same thing to the lights across the street. Here, these horizontals, just click the question mark, set that correctly. And I also want to set these vertical lights that are facing the same direction. They work in tandem with these lights. Set light route to 1. And so I want that and set to 1. So this means that all of these lights, as we're looking in this direction up and down on your screen, are all set to the same controller, the same route, so they all change at the same time. That is what you want. Now you can do this for your entire layout, meaning you could have a light just like this 10 miles away on your layout, if it's set to the same controller, it will behave the exact same as these lights. Now you don't really ever want to do that. You always want to keep your controller local to where the light is, just so that if anything is messed up, you can go and fix it. You know, if something gets screwy where you forgot to change a channel or set a light or something like that, you know, you can go ahead and fix it. So now we're going to flip over to this side, and we're going to do the same thing here with this light, set it to channel 6, and we're going to set it to route number 2. Do the same thing with all these others. Do it really briefly here. Whoops! See, I made a mistake. I set it to the wrong one. So when you watch the lights behave, you'll notice that that one won't behave properly. But I did fix it, so it's not going to do that. Channel 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Channel 1. Nope. Channel route 2. And then set this one, route 2, channel 6. Okay, I'm going to double check that light just to make sure. Yes, I got it. So I'm going to slide over here so you can kind of see. This one's green, that one's green, this one is red. We'll watch it go through a cycle. It's nice to watch them go through the cycles so that you make sure you didn't mess up anything when you go later into your building, or worse, you're playing the route and all of a sudden nothing makes any sense. So we can see that the phase changes aren't quite right. The lights turn a little too early. So I'm going to go around here, make sure this side is functioning properly. And that's good. So far everything's functioning the way it should. The lights turn a little bit too soon, so we'll adjust that here in just a moment. So yeah, you can see that doesn't work correctly, but the lights are all synchronized. So you go back into your controller, and this is when you adjust the phase timings. So the phase timings, 20 seconds, gap delay, we'll make that up to 5. That is the delay between the phase activation. So think of it kind of like a bouncing ball or a metronome, or whenever you see like a music piece that they did on the computer, you've got a line that follows along. So the line is right now going to be on phase 1 for 20 seconds, then it's going to go in between, and then it will go to phase 2, and then it will repeat. So that is how it should work. We'll click on this, and we have to wait for it to cycle. So we'll see in this cycle, the next 20 seconds, how it works, and hopefully there will be a big enough gap so that you know, we wouldn't have cars technically crashing into each other. So we'll just wait here for just a moment, and there's the yellow, red, all red, and green. Perfect. That is just perfect. That is exactly what we want. Okay, so that is getting the lights right. Now we need traffic to actually stop. So this is where stuff gets kind of interesting. What you actually need are some ATLS traffic stoppers and 2 slaves. Traffic slaves. Get that right. What you do, I have them in my pick list, but ATLS traffic stopper. Perfect. And we will go here and just put a traffic stopper on each side of your intersection. Now, the way I'm doing this is I'm putting a traffic stopper where I want the cars to stop when there is a train. The only reason I'm doing that is because it's really simple. You know, I could put traffic stoppers for the light change, and I could put traffic stoppers for the train, for when the train crosses. But that's just confusing, and it's a lot of extra work, and there's several things that can go wrong, and I don't want to deal with it. So we're just going to keep it simple. So that looks like a reasonable distance, reasonable distance, reasonable distance. So perfect. All right, so now what we're going to do is we're going to connect them up to the roads. So I'm just going to go to my roads tab. I'm going to just cut a spline here, 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 and here. And then you just delete everything from where you made your cut to the intersection. Like that, and that. And then we just drag these and drop them in. And the road's gonna dip down just like this. This is perfectly normal. Dip down, dip down. Okay. So with that, we're gonna go back to our height adjuster that we used for the traffic lights, which is right here on the object menu. And then you wanna grab this, hit Control to fine tune, and you wanna go up. Generally about 0.4 seems to be the height that the traffic stoppers like. Now these traffic stoppers are just the main traffic stoppers that come with the ATLS package. There are about 3 or 4 other ones that you can choose. They all function pretty much the same when you get down to their raw programming. There may be, you know, aesthetic differences or spline point differences, but I haven't had a chance to experiment with them all, but mechanically they'll all work the same. So we are going to grab this piece of road, and you just click on the intersection, drag to your stopper, and connect. Perfect. And connect. And connect. Okay. So then what you want to do is you want to overlook each piece. And you just want to make sure everything's straight. You know, it doesn't jog over because you misplaced your traffic stopper. I tried to put them in the line, and I think they're pretty good. Yeah, we'll call that good. I'll just look profile along each road here. That looks fine. That looks fine. That looks fine. Okay. All good. All good. So how do we do the traffic stopping? Let's go to object mode. And for me, I have this once again in my pick list, and you want the ATLS slave. Make sure you get the blue one, not the reverse slave, which I think is like yellow and black. And so what you want to do is place them somewhere where you can find them. So I'm just going to do one on each side of this intersection here, just like this. And now this is where things get sort of complicated for people. What you want to do is assign one slave to each, or you want to assign one slave to 2 traffic stoppers. For this, you use an invisible track. There's plenty of invisible tracks out there. The ATLS, I think, comes with one called the track eraser, which is what the texture is underneath the polygon. That's good. It's nice and big so you can see it. I prefer the invisible wire by BNSF 50 because I think it's a little bit cleaner. And so what you want to do is you want to connect one slave to each route. Now remember, a route is any road connecting. So we have 2 routes. So we'll take this one right here and connect it to the north-south route. And then we will take this one right here and connect it to the east-west route. It doesn't matter what side you connect it to, but for what we're doing, connect it to one side. We want to connect it to one side, we want to leave the other side open. So now what you want to do is come in here, select, I'm sorry, I'm in the wrong menu. Make sure you are in the object menu for this, and the place where you put down like buildings and stuff. And you want to select each one, set it to channels. So it was channel 6, right? Yes, channel 6. And then asset to control traffic on route. We want it to be route number 1. Correct, because this is the north-south one. Yes, that's right. Actually, I'm going to double check that. Yes, that is correct. So we do route 1, start delay. We're not going to worry about any of those things right now. That's just fine-tuning stuff. You know, if the traffic jets off too early from the green light or whatever, you can go in there and adjust that by a little bit. But I'm not going to worry about that right now. And then the second slave we will set to channel 6, route 2, and sounds good. You can also name these. Like we can call this one traffic east-west, and we can call this traffic north-south. Okay, so that's the traffic is set up, and it's matched with the intersection. So that's how you would build an ATLS intersection if you really want to model a simple intersection with traffic lights that actually function. Helps make your city look more alive. It's really cool, but for me, it's just not worth the time to model this for an intersection that's not directly involved with the railroad track. So, you know, if you've got, like this example, you've got a railroad crossing in the middle of the intersection, yes, definitely worth modeling ATLS for. Like an intersection like this one way over here, you know, it's not involved with anything in the rail, it just looks scenic, you know, it's just, for me, it's just not worth modeling, but you can. You can do this to any intersection that you wish. So that's an actual traffic intersection. Now we need to put a rail crossing in. So many of you have watched the ATLS video that I did before, and this is not going to be very much different, honestly. It's going to be pretty much the same, with the exception that we have an ATLS intersection involved. So here is how we are going to do this, and I hope that this works because it's going to be a little bit different of a method. I think it'll work. Let's give it a shot. What is the worst that can happen? Let's see. So first things first, we need to establish where our rail crossing is going to be. It's right here in the middle of the intersection. Second, we need to place some gates. And let's see if we can put some gates down. What gates do I want? That's the question, is what gates do I want? And I think we are going to go with modern gates, 2-lane roads. We don't need side lights. Don't want wigwags. I think I want gates on this one. Just because, yeah, that's the left side. We don't want a left side. Let's do, no, that's the left side as well. Do we have any of these that are right sides? No. No, I don't want a left gate. Let's just narrow down our list a bit. There's a lot on here. This is what happens when you don't rehearse these things. I can't read what that actually says, but I think this will work. Since we have a sidewalk here, and it's supposed to be, you know, a small town America, you know, there'll be lots of pedestrian traffic. So now we need to take into account where our road stoppers are, and they're right here, and we want them to stop before the gate, so we'll just plop that in here. Rotate to fit, control to refine, move, and that looks pretty good. That looks pretty good. I don't want to mount it too close to the road or else cars will sock it. Sorry, I'm in a building. Pedestrian gate's a bit excessive, but it looks kind of cool. So now we just need to copy that for all other sides of the intersection. This one will put the gate back here. Make that fit just like so. Come on. I want 108, thank you. And I'll put that there. You know, that's probably too far. You know what? I think we're going to drag this up a little bit closer. So we'll just take the stopper, we'll just drag it a little bit closer. There. That'll be good. And then we'll just take the crossing and drag it up. There. Perfect. I guess I don't technically need a pedestrian gate on that one, but It looks cool anyways. Alright, so go over here, we'll put that one down. Come on, rotate to 70 is my magic number for this one. Perfect. Just roll that up, slide into place. That looks good. We're not going to hit anything with the gate. Perfect. Do this one as well. Again, I think I put this one a bit too far away from the actual crossing, so we're actually going to move it a bit ahead this time. Perfect. And we'll just take the stopper with us. Perfect. That looks great. Alright, so we have our railroad crossings in. Now, this is where things get interesting. Because one of the biggest mistakes that people do, and actually while I was thinking through how I was going to do this, here, let me unclutter the screen for you. One of the way I was thinking of doing this, it would actually, one of the biggest mistakes people do is they will route their crossing gates and the train into the same wiring system as the traffic lights, which in the end is what we're doing. That is what we're doing. But the downside is that if a light turns red, like if the traffic light turns red normally, the crossing gates will go down, and we don't want that. No, no, that's not supposed to happen. So what we're actually going to do is we're going to kind of trick the game a little bit, because we don't want the crossing gates to go down anytime there's a red light. That doesn't make any sense. So what we're actually going to do, if you saw in my ATLS crossing video, I wired each traffic stopper to the crossing. I'm not going to do that this time. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the ATLS slave and I'm going to put it right here in the middle of the intersection. As long as you don't, whoopsies. When you do something like that, your undo button is your best friend. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to put the ATLS crossing right, or the ATLS slave right in the middle of the intersection. As long as I don't connect my rails to it, it's fine. Just don't connect it to your rails or you are going to screw something up really bad, and it's not good. So we'll take that. We're going to take our invisible wire and we are going to go to each crossing. So, you know what? I don't like the way that's oriented, so we are going to... Dang it, I did it again. We are going to grab the slave, we'll orient it like... Okay, let's do that. I want to try to make it so that you can somewhat follow it. So what we're going to do is we're going to grab the wire, we're going to go around, and we're going to put it in this area right here where it connects with the crossing. And then we are going to connect that one to the other crossing. Perfect. Next we will take this one behind it, we will connect it to the crossing, and then we will connect that crossing to the other crossing. There we go. So all of the gates are connected, correct. Let's see. Comes in there, connects there, goes up, through, and into that one. Perfect. This is where sometimes people select two different wires so that they can see. In fact, you know what? In fact, I'm going to take a look really quickly. Visible wire. Helps if you can spell. Okay, that's an invisible red. Yeah, we'll do the invisible track. So let's undo all of that wiring, and I'm going to redo it here so you can see it. Let's redo. Okay, we'll just do it like this. So I'm going to do it with this big purpley track so that you can actually see what I'm doing. So we're going to grab, we're going to go over to this first crossing, you're going to click, then we grab it again, we go over to that crossing, click. Then we go behind, we grab, we go to this crossing, click, go, that crossing, click. So all this is invisible track. That's all the wire is invisible track. So you can use any flavor that you want, and you can see how it is connected. Now, you don't have to follow the strategy that I did, the way I connected it. I just tried to make it the shortest distance possible, but I also put it pretty perpendicular to the track so that I could track, I could see where my stuff was going. And you don't have to wire it in the schematic that I did. You can wire it whatever you want. Just make sure that you don't have any junctions within your invisible wire. So yeah, that's that all wired up. So now we just need to make it actually work. And so this is where the triggers come in. And we're going to be using 2 sets of triggers for this. One's going to trigger the grade crossing gates, and the next is going to trigger the traffic lights. So what we need to do is first get our measuring tape out and a calculator, which I need to go get. Okay. Calculator. And we need to figure out how far away our rail crossing needs to be. This is going to be a 10 mile an hour zone. So, 10 miles an hour. And we need a 20 second gap, I think is what the Federal Railroad Administration requires for the gates to be down before a train can enter. So I'm just gonna flip a converter here for speed. So 10 miles an hour is 14 feet per second. So 14 feet times 20 seconds. Actually, we'll do 15 because the number's closer to 15. It's 300 feet. So let's do that. We'll go from the entrance of our crossing, and we'll go 300 feet this way. All right, that's about here. There we go. So that's where our first ATLS trigger is going to go. Didn't want that. Let's try that again. There. Sometimes when you go from your pick list and you're not in the right window, it won't select stuff correctly. I'll just move that over here. And then we'll measure, this is where things get interesting, because I have a switch over here. I was kind of hoping this would be within 300 feet. We're going to try to milk as much of this as we can. Okay, so this is where things get interesting, because I really don't want to put a trigger inside my roundhouse area. And I also have another switch right here, and I don't really want to have to place a trigger on each one. So we're going to kind of fudge it a little bit, because we are going to have some time, especially the 20-second window. So we're going to fudge it a little bit, and we're just going to put one here, we'll put one here, and we'll put one here. Remember, it's our world, we are the creator, and we can break federal laws. So I'll simple do that. Clear that out so I can see. And now we will set the crossings. So what we're going to do is set the crossings to I'm sorry, I had a brain fart. I just realized that I forgot to set the slave. All right. Set the slave to channel 6. Yeah, the slave is going to be set to channel 6. And it's going to control a level crossing, which will act as a special. That should be right. And then we will come over here and select the ATLS triggers. And we need to set this to channel 6. And this activates the special. This is the SPL that we were talking about, and I'll get to that in a second. We'll go through. So we set it to the same channel. We set it to SPL. We don't set it to off. We don't set it to 1. We don't set it to anything else. And we are going to run this as a 2-controller system, not a 4-controller. So we're just going to go around. We're going to make sure that all these are set correctly. La-di-da, la-di-da. Perfect. And we'll go over here, and we'll set this one to a channel 6. Perfect. Okay, so that's over here. And then we're going to come back to our main controller for the intersection, which is this piece right there. And so you see these SPL things. Now, these are the special triggers, which will be triggered by the train. They are a special phase that is automatically included with any sort of design. And these will change the lights based on what the train does when it hits the sensor. So, as it's set right now, both lights are going to turn to red. If I want the north-south road to go green, I'll select that to green. On special event, route 1 will go. We don't want that, so we're going to leave it at red, and everything should be set accordingly. The one problem that you might run into is that the phases won't change fast enough. I think with the distances that we have set, it's going to be okay, but I'm not entirely certain. The only way to find out is we're going to put some trains down, we're going to go into the actual game, and we're going to find out if I did this tutorial correctly or not. So I'm going to put some trains in, I'm going to load the game up, and we'll see if this works, and I'll see you then. Alright everybody, welcome back to the live mode. We are actually in the game now, and we're going to see how this intersection performs. We've got this Santa Fe locomotive, which will be heading into town, and it will be rolling straight into the shops here on the other side. And then we will have another train, this Rock Island train with some grain cars coming through the intersection just to make sure that everything functions as it should. So, let's take a look at how our intersection is performing right now. So far, cars are going across. It looks very good. And I already saw an issue that I anticipated on happening. This happens all of the time, and it's because of the way that we have the setup. You actually can see why. You can see this delineation right here where the stuff's really packed together, the polygons. This is where the stopper is, and because of the distance between the intersection and this stopper, traffic will stop before it. There's a lot of ways to get rid of this issue. A lot of them have been solved and some other traffic stoppers used, but the main way that I've heard to get rid of them is to put another spline point, like right here, right before it. The traffic tends to ignore traffic stoppers if there is a joint right before it. So we'll go back into the surveyor, we'll plop those down, and that should fix the issue. I'm not going to bother showing you on camera that the issue's fixed because, you know, this has already gone fairly long. Doors can turn on DCC mode, you know, nothing fancy. So we're just going to move our train forward a little bit. And we'll come back, we'll watch the intersection should turn completely red. Our train will actually move. There it goes. There's the lights turning yellow. There they are turning red. And there they are turning green. So we haven't quite reached the trigger yet. Let's try to get it a little bit faster. Slowly but surely. Okay, all lights are red. Yes, all lights are red. And the crossing has activated. Down come the gates. All gates are down, all lights are activated, traffic has stopped. I'm going to twist the camera over here so that I don't accidentally run off the end of the track. Got a little bit of clipping with the sidewalk, but that's not a big deal. Should pass that trigger there at the end, and the train should be through. Hopefully. There go the gates. And the traffic lights have already reset. Perfect. Just stop the train right there. Alright, so that dry run went through successfully. Let's put the second train through just to verify that it is working correctly. And as the game lags a little bit, because that's what it does on my computer, I want to remind something that I did not share in the original build, and that is, remember in the ATLS video I showed you how to shrink the range of the area that the trigger determined, the senses. Let me try to put this without stuttering. A trigger is a point on a track, and it has a range on either side of it. The default is 20 meters, that it will detect any train's presence. In the setup that we have with the triggers along the Y switch here, that will be a major issue. And you need to make sure you go and reset that to 1 meter, or else you're going to have all sorts of problems. So we're just going to send this train out. It's going to wander over to the Granary, as long as it's heading in the right direction. So it pops out. You can see this light just changed. Try to actually reach the speed limit. It says 40, but it's going to be 10 when the layout's actually live. Okay, this is a bit what I was fearing is going to happen. Okay, and a little bit of lag, which usually tells me that something's about to happen. And crossing has triggered, and the gates are going down, but they did not go down fast enough. So, alright. So that means we need to reset where that trigger is induced, or we need to slow the trains down. That's not right. Okay. Why did that happen? Oh. I think I know what happened. There's a switch right here that I think I forgot to throw. And because I forgot to throw that switch, I messed up the timing of the crossing. I don't know. I'm going to have to rewatch the footage there and take a look myself. But either way, the basics are there. It's just a trigger issue. That's all it is. That's messing up this crossing. And I'll figure that out off camera. I don't want to waste time doing it now. I hope this was at least somewhat helpful. I feel stupid that we don't have an actual fully functioning crossing that I can say, hey, look, check it out. But we do have a trigger issue. I probably need to slow trains down even further, maybe 5 miles an hour coming out of the shed so that the crossing triggers properly. But this is the stuff you find when you're doing testing. And, you know, I didn't test this before I built it, so, you know, that's my fault for doing it ad hoc. but it kind of gives you an idea of what to expect. You know, go in, change some triggers, mess with some things, and then once you're done, you have a functioning rail crossing intersection. So I hope this was helpful to at least some of you. I know this probably is way too long. You know, it's going to be way too long. I don't even know how long this has been going, but you know, hopefully this was helpful and allows you to tackle some complicated intersections, some street running, and other things. So I hope you guys enjoyed the video, and I hope it was helpful to you, and I hope you guys have fun building your little worlds, your little trains, and I will see you in the next video. Have a wonderful day.